Warhammer 40k Dark Imperium by Guy Haley. Chapter 3 The Fallen Phoenix. The Heliopolis was in a ruinous state. Shattered tiers of marble seats crowded the dark. In times past, the followers of Fulgrim had gathered upon them to hear their Primarch speak, before he fell to darkness and took his legion with him. Now pageantry and light had been cast out by decay and dereliction. The great windows in the dome were dark, the shutters closed from neglect rather than necessity. A thick layer of dust coated everything, and the air reeked thickly of sweat and stale musk. Bones were scattered about amid toppled fire bowls. They were mostly baseline human, but here and there were skeletons of space marines, identifiable by their greater size, the solidly fused bones of their ribcage, and the tattered remains of black carpus clinging to them. Shell holes in the marble seat told of a battle long ago. The crater's large circumference had the signature blast patterns of bolt detonations in soft stone. The Space Marines had fought Space Marines here, though when and why, Gulliman could not guess. Perhaps there had been a last stand of the Emperor's children loyal to Terra, though it could just as easily have been a clash between two rival warbands decades later. It's impossible to tell. The mosaics on the ceiling were full of holes, the faces all smashed in. Hooks between the figures held bent banner poles. Threads of triumphal silk standards moved in the wind's breath. When whole, these flags had probably commemorated thousands of victories in the Emperor's name, but now they were spoiled as the oaths of the warriors who had won them. Rare complete examples stood out them at the racks. The vice on it was smirched with filth. That was worse, in a way. Silence made the Heliopolis its domain. Vox reports chattered in Gulliman's helm, telling of goals almost accomplished, and bringing the clamor of war into the dead auditorium. The racket was contained by his helmet. The silence was stronger, pressing in hard upon his ceramite faceplate, distancing Gulliman from the men fighting in his name. At the center of the Heliopolis was a ring dominated by a black throne. Gulliman recalled standing there, beside his brother, and speaking in the days when all this madness was inconceivable. A cone of soft light ignited and fell into it, casting shadows from the chunks of rubble, and bringing an eerie shine from the black terrazzo to the flooring. Gulliman descended the steps slowly from the Phoenix Gate down the main stairs whose once shining finish had been scratched dull. The battle cries of the Aurora warriors, the war oaths of the Nova Marines, and the howling of the Doom Mages all echoed in his helmet. A burst of loud static signaled an explosion. A signifier rune in Gulliman's helmet blinked green. The Aurora chapter had knocked out the ship's navigatorium. Garbled reports from their captains competed with the other incoming traffic, guesting with hard-won victory, signaling their withdrawal. He overheard jubilant calls from the teleport lock, and they were gone. Other signifiers glowed dull red around the top of his faceplate display, representing his strike team's remaining targets. 2 more critical systems, 2 more green runes, and they might escape this yet, but his men needed more time. "Continue with your objectives, my sons," he spoke clearly into his Vox pickup. "Fall back upon their completion. The Emperor watch over you." He cut his Vox. The Heliopolis' malevolent silence rushed into his helmet. Gilliman reached the last step and paused at the edge of the inner circle. The last of his heavy footsteps echoed to nothing. The light was unclean, some warp effect obscuring the far side of the Heliopolis from his vision. He was vulnerable here. This was the stage his fallen brother had chosen for his final confrontation. The derelict site of Fulgrim's lost glories. "Fulgrim! I am here, Fulgrim, your brother. Robot Gulliman stands in the Heliopolis again. Will you not greet me?" Gulliman's Vox-amplified voice echoed around the Heliopolis, each repeat growing with sadness until it became a sobbing caricature. The effect disappointed Gulliman. "My once brother, your cheap sorcery cannot accept me. Come and face me, if you dare, or do you have become as cowardly as your debauched?" There was a metallic rattle and rasping of scaled skin over stone that echoed around the outer row of seats. Gulliman squinted, but the light before him cheated his vision, allowing him to see only the circle. "I hear you, Fulgrim," he cried. "Come out into the light!" This time Fulgrim replied. His voice was as mellifluous as it always had been, but the neediness had always been lurked in the back of his words, and had come to the fore as poison masquerading as confidence. "Why are you in such a hurry?" he said, his whisper filling the Heliopolis. "Your strategy is to play for time, isn't it? To allow his sons and their fine new paint to cripple this ship. They look so colorful now, Gulliman, so much less dull than blue, blue, blue. How was it to break up your legion, Gulliman? Did it hurt?" "Come and face me! Let us settle our differences honorably." "Do you want to talk?" Fulgrim's unseen tittered. "About what? Family reunion? You and I have nothing in common. We never did, and now we have even less in common. I serve the true powers of this universe, while you languish under that hand of a father. You are so predictable, Reboot, so dull and solid. Poor old Reboot. You were the unloved child, while the brighter stars got all of a father's attention, overlooked until the end, and then, when you needed it, you were not there. You must have been stung, brother, to be so outshone. Persuado did not enjoy it, I know. Did you?" Gilliman peered hard through the light. It responded to his prodigious will. Its obscuring effect lessened, and he caught a hint of the serious movements on the far side of the circle. "Our father always honored me," Gilliman shouted across the empty chamber. Fulgrim laughed, louder and louder, until Heliopolis filled with a mild mirth that seemed to issue from 1,000 throats. "Oh, forgive me. This is so precious. Do you not remember my eagle, dear Reboot? It was I who was honored, not you." The rasping of steel drew closer. Luminous green eyes glinted on the other side of the nickel light. Gilliman set himself and stood tall. "My legion may not have won your plaudits, Fulgrim, but I chose the slow and steady road. And that was the better way. You were always racing towards perfection, away from your fear of failure. Your fear made you run right into the arms of damnation." "Failure?" Fulgrim scoffed. "Damnation? I have not failed. I am not damned." Fulgrim slithered into light. "I am saved." "For the love of Terra," whispered Gulliman. Gulliman had seen picked captures of his brother from the siege of the Imperial Palace in Terra. He had viewed them many times, nothing the changes wrought upon his sibling as disappointedly as he could, fighting back the revulsion he felt at the sight. Reports and the occasional image of his sibling had surfaced from his reaving since. The image on the physics gate had been no surprise. He knew that was what was to be expected. But faced with Fulgrim in the flesh, he struggled to contain his dismay. The Phoenician's legs were gone, replaced with a long serpent's tail. His torso and face had become elongated, his chest altered to accommodate an additional pair of arms. Despite his obscene form, everything was weirdly perfect. The muscles in his bare chest were exquisitely defined. His skin was a gorgeous shade of iliac. Snakeskin of his lower half shone with jeweled color, and he moved with a grace to shame the Aldari. But all this was a perversion of his former beauty, if not the very idea of beauty itself. It was too much, so perfect in its awful twisting of human form that it went beyond the ability of the mind to process. Fulgrim's new shape provoked revulsion by its very nature, while awing with the artfulness by which it had done. By design he was made to arouse and repulse equally. His head in particular was changed, long and crowned with horns that rose crimson from his shock of white hair. His face, however, remained his own, a sickening joke to crown his dark transcendence. Seeing the features of a brother melded to this monster that brought tears to Gulliman's eyes. Finely wrought ornaments jangled on Fulgrim's lips. Soft leather straps held long gloves in place on his right arm. The left arms were painted with delicate patterns. His fingers hung with chains, their nails chained clashing shades. Vile signs decorated the buckles of his harness. More were tattooed upon his skin. Fulgrim rose up on his banded tail, holding his 4 arms wide in the sickly light of the Heliopolis. "Behold, my brothers, see what the Emperor made, the Prince of Pleasure has improved upon. I am not perfect. Am I not perfection? I was made to be a slave, but now I'm free, and a companion to a greater god than our father can never be." "The Emperor is not a god," said Gulliman. The ship quaked, a signifier that Gulliman's head turned from red to green. The portside void cannons had been disabled. Data screen informed him that the fourth company of Iron Snakes was making a fighting withdrawal. "Do you still believe that?" said Fulgrim. He inched forward, swaying hypnotically. "You always did protest too much about that. Don't you think I'm a traitor yet?" I know you think I'm selfish and deluded, but no more so than our dear father. He gave me so much, not at least a taste of treachery. Fulgrim leaned closer, close enough for his hot, perfumed breath to caress Gulliman's armored face. The cawing stink of it penetrated his breathing grill, making him gag. There was a scent of something rotten, plenty of melange of spices, one note of decay in a bouquet of opulence. There's the truth, Gulliman thought. The miasma of corruption, a murdered corpse hidden in a bed of flowers. "Join with me," said Fulgrim seductively. "You must be tired of all this strife. We can bring an end to war and revel together in the sweet excess of all eternity. I can show you things, pleasures you never dreamed existed. You think of the warp as hell, but it can be heaven also. Together we can usher in an age of delight for all mankind that will never end." "Never," said Gulliman. "You have been deceived. I will not follow you into darkness." He stepped backwards, his hand going to the guild of the gladius encounter. The Primarchs were mighty beings and great in stature, but swollen with the power of chaos. Fulgrim overtopped Gulliman by almost a meter. It is you who has been deceived," said Fulgrim. "Look at what you have become. You will see the wages of disloyalty." "You speak to me of loyalty?" Fulgrim tutted and shook his long warped head. "And where do your loyalties lie, Lord Commander? You were too late to the palace, were you not? Delayed? Always your love for your kingdom trumps your so-called loyalty to our father. Like a little emperor playing at being daddy in the sand, making tiny empires. And you would have saved the 500 worlds and lost the millions of our father. Pathetic. A long forked tongue filled with his painted lips. How are your 500 worlds now, brother? How many are left? 400? 3? I heard Angra and Logra had rare bring down the bastions of your puny realm and slitting down the throats of your people. Gulliman's anger ran hot. "I will not bend my knee to your masters. These gods you and the others profess to worship are not gods. They are monsters, nothing more. There can be no rapprochement between us, no reconciliation. You have become the tool of the enemy, and so I must kill you." "You have come to kill me? Really? How amusing. Because I have come to kill you," said Fulgrim with a mocking surprise. He clapped his upper pair of hands. "What a coincidence! Do you realize? I need no starship to travel the void." He adjusted his body, his four hands moving with obscene suggestive precision. "I am no longer a thing of this realm of ash and dust, but a radiant creature of the warp." He pulled out a moo of sympathy. "Oh, am I sorry? But this was a trap for you, Rebote. The whole thing, from my first raids to your supposed victory at Xolco, and you have fallen into it." Since this was the first indication of Fulgrim turning to fight here, Gulliman had known he had been outplayed, but he would not give his brother the satisfaction of knowing this. He steeled his heart and prepared to fight. "I will not be turned." "I never thought you would," said Fulgrim sweetly. Another shoulder passed up the pride of the Emperor. The rune detonating the strike against the Imperium turned green. Carv would be pulling his chapter back. "You can run now if you want. I believe your warriors have accomplished what you sent them to do. This vessel cannot pursue you. Some of you might even live. I do not care. All of you will bow before Slanesh before the end." "Enough!" said Gulliman. He drew the gladius incarnate in his right hand. The hand of the illumination sparked into life on his left, an oily field of blue light encasing its massive robotic fingers and underslung bolt guns. Raising the flat of his blade to the muzzle of his helmet, he saluted his brother. He thumped the switch and the sheath of energy covered the blade to match that of his fist. "You are staying? No dramatic teleportation, no strategic withdrawal. You actually want to fight someone you cannot hope to beat? Well, 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 you begin to surprise me, Reboot. I never thought you had it in you. Perhaps you're not so boring after all." "Honor demands I slay you." Fulgrim stretched out his arms. Blades rose from nothing, sprouting from his clenched fists, black vapor boiling off their metal as they were forced into being. The swords were mismatched in form, and every one a different pastel hue. Bright poison dripped from their edges. "Honor will get you killed." Fulgrim raised his own blades to his face, the edges ringing off at one another. There was no mockery to the salute. "So it is, brother. We come to the end. With you dead, our other brothers will follow one by one. The Imperium cannot last without your guidance. It is I who holds the whole crumbling thing together. Dull as you are, you were among the best of us. I almost feel sorry to kill you, if only because you will not see the triumph of the true powers of the universe, and nor the liberation of they bring. Swift as a striking viper, Fulgrim attacked, all four blades driving down at his brother's primax so quickly that they did not seem to pass through the intervening air. Coleman caught them at the edge of the Gladius encounter. Its fuel generators smoked at the effort of halting them. The resulting eruption of energy threw both Primarchs off backwards. Fulgrim's attacked again. Coleman cried out as one blade found its way past his parries and left a smoking groove in the ceramite around his left arm. He would not win this fight. "Feel, Andros!" Quarks commanded. Now! There was a sound like a sigh that turned into a rumbling groan. The Helova's boomed with conflicting resonances, and the Phoenix Gate exploded inwards, destroying the room with gabots of molten bronze. The Ultramarines of the first and second companies came charging in, bolters firing at the demon Primarch battling their lord. "At last, you the true colors. For all your talk of honor, you will not face me alone." Angered, he rained a flurry of blows on Guilliman's, driving the Primarch back one step, then two. The bolters aimed at the Primarch were turned aside by diabolic art, and he stood the full face of the Ultramarines' attack. "My sons are here to greet yours. Let them join the revel," parrying Guilliman's attacks with insolent ease. Fulgrim threw back his head, his jaws opened wide enough to swallow a man whole, and he let out a shriek of utilation. From the far side of the abyss, a harrying, discordant noise answered the call of the demon Primarch. From the upper tiers of the Heliopolis seats marched the twisted warriors of the Emperor's children, merrily bearing sonic weapons from which came the thrumming of destructive music. "Now we shall see whose children will survive," snarled Fulgrim, and came at his brother. Guilliman countered his parry and his mighty gauntlet, batting aside Fulgrim's swords. With his own hunted through the cage of steel, Fulgrim wove with his forebays, seeking out the tainted flesh behind. Fulgrim snarled as the tip of Guilliman's gladius nicked his skin. Rising up on his tail, he swept down with his swords in quick succession. Guilliman's weapons frowned them all, and turning them aside with economical movements. Nevertheless, he was sorely pressed. He had fought daemons of every kind on many worlds, and bested them all. Fulgrim, however, was an unholy blend of Primarch and daemon. In him, the energy of the war was married to the wisdom of ancient sciences. He was a part material god, part immaterial daemon lord, and his power was great. Guilliman cut and feinted, using the hand of the minion to catch the sword wielded by Fulgrim's lower left arm. The unheavenly metal cut into the thick ceramite of the gauntlet, and corrosive poison spattered the armor of reason, eating into it with smoking ferocity. Pain, however, afflicted Guilliman through his armor as if his warplate itself were hurt. The spicy agony burned upon the nerve in his arm from his interface sockets. He gritted his teeth and twisted the gauntlet. Energy crackled and banged, and the sword snapped in two. Ichor pumped from his hollowed innards. Strings of flesh tore free as Guilliman cast the broken rib aside. Fulgrim screamed as if the limb had been ripped off, and he recalled. Guilliman had fought his own pain to slash hard with the gladius incarna, cutting deeply into Fulgrim's swordless arm. "How dare you!" Fulgrim screamed, rearing back. He lunged at his enemy, casting brightly into him, knocking Guilliman from his feet. The invictorious Surzan thundered from the steps through the lord, forming a shield wall about him as he scrambled up, but Fulgrim slithered into him, barging them from their feet and slaughtering them with contemptuously, his swords looping limbs with every strike. "You will die!" shouted Guilliman. He surged past his last bodyguard as Fulgrim's swords punched through the space from his shield, armor, and body. He swung hard with his gauntlet, but Fulgrim was too quick and weaved on his side. The hand of the minion punched down into the marble steps, pulverizing three of them. Guilliman spun around, anticipating Fulgrim's next attack, but the demon had gone. He searched for his brother in the conflict. The two armies had met, their struggles filled the Heliopolis to side. His warriors and the Emperor's children were intermediated. The blue armor of the Ultramarines dotted with a sea of clashing colors, and battle plate decorated with the stretched skins of the dead. Cones of sound visibly tortured the air, blasting Guilliman's warriors from their feet. Blood fountained from breathing grills as dying Marines coughed up their shattered insides. Not of white-helmed Terminators stood back to back, dealing death to any traitor that strayed near, while a wall of Ultramarines' second company brothers advanced, guns booming, pushing back insane warriors. War was everywhere, desperate and wild. The situation in the void was mirrored within the Heliopolis. His men were outnumbered, they would die. First, theoretically, Fulgrim is a pine evil in this world. First, practically, I will kill him, Goldman thought. Second, theoretical, he countered. You are angry. Second, practical, you will throw your own life and those of your men away from nothing. You have failed in this campaign. Retreat. Memory of Nor Gulliman, his adopted father, flashed in his mind. Control your humours, Connor had told him. You are mightier in every regard than any man, that includes your passions. Master them, or you will fail. Temper. That was always his temper. For most of his life, Robert Gilliman had kept his emotions in check. There had been always notable occasions where he lost his head. At Calth, when Solthad was attacked, or when he arrived late to Terra, or the early days of the Scouring, he would add that to the record. Beneath his commanding exterior, Gilliman was seething with fury. Fulgrim! He bellowed. Face me! A whip-fast motion flickered to the side. Fulgrim had sped through the melee, coming from the left. Gilliman barely had time to raise his sword before crashing into him, snarling incoherently, knocking him backwards. You hurt me, you corpse-master's lapdog! The last vestiges of Fulgrim's humanity molded from his face as it transformed back into a mask of pure hatred. No one hurts me! No one beats me! He wrapped his tail around his brother's Primac, constricting him with such force that his armored plate began to crack. Casting aside one sword, Fulgrim reached down and grasped Gulliman's hat. You wanted to face me? So face me! He said, wrenching free Gulliman's helmet, exposing his naked flesh to the air. The stings of his erupted brothers made Gulliman gag. His head swam as the demon Primac scent invaded his nose, throat, and unmoderated by his battle helm systems. Pathetic, cried Fulgrim. He uncurled, flinching Gulliman aside. His wounded arm was already healing, crackling warp energies working in tandem with his primal physiology to make him whole again. He conjured swords from poisonous mist to fill his hands and flew at the master of MacGregor. Gulliman staggered upright, gasping. Every breath poured from Fulgrim's lethal perfume into his lungs, a poison so potent it attacks his superhuman body. He parried and parried again, but he could not land a counter-strike, and was forced back up the stairs. A blow flung his arm wide. He never saw the blade that cut him coming. A cold kiss across his throat, followed by sear agony. A tear of blood sprayed from his ruined neck. He clamped his hand to the wound, but it gaped beneath armored fingers, and the blood would not stop. Poison crawled in where his blood flooded out. Already it had affected him, numbing his lips first and making his eyes heavy. With supreme effort, Robert Gilliman raised the Gladius Incarna for the last time. How? He mouthed. His vocal cords were severed. Blood spilled from his mouth in the place of words. I see the mark of Corferus Atham. Fulgrim swayed as he approached. He could never turn you, but the cut he inflicted is a scar on the warp that would never heal. It's a great weakness as your rectitude, or should I say was. Here the avenging sun meets his end. He smashed at Gulliman's sword so hard it flew from his limb into a heavy battle. Fulgrim raised his sword for the killing strike. Say hello to father for me. A storm of fire blasted down the stairs, bolt rounds striking followed by burning streams of plasma. Fulgrim screeched. The unearthly field that shielded him shrieked and spitting his image. He screamed as a blaze of incandescent gas pieces his protection and burned aside. The Primarch! To the Primarch! Roared Captain Andros in anguish. Gulliman sank to his knees, unable to speak. His perceptions became fragmentary. Warriors in blue threw himself at the reeling demon prince, only to be carved up into red chunks in the mid-air. His sons tossed their lives away to spare a few drops of his blood. Names and faces flashed through his mind. So many bold and honorable men cast down by his betrayal. His brothers unwittingly corrupted or undone by personal failings. Others slain. His sons dying in battle. So many of his sons. A roaring blackness encroached. He fell, but he hit nothing. It felt like floating. A perfumed ocean lapped at him. Joy rode up in its waves. Lies, he thought. Lies, I cannot die. Gulliman forced open his eyes. He was on his back, looking up at the ceiling. His limbs deliciously numb. A treacherous pleasure thrilled his mind as the poison worked on him. Captain Andros was at his side. A wall of blue caramite surrounded him. Now damn you all! Now! Emergency teleport! Emergency teleport! Shouted Andros, his bolter barking. He's panicking, Gulliman thought. Andros is panicking. The howling thrum of sonic weaponry tore away the last of Andros' words, and his head vanished in a mist of red. Chained explosions boomed around Gulliman. Part of the wall of men guarding him was knocked down. A body sailed through the air. The ultramarine blue of his armor cracked open and stained red. Battle roared, a dozen bolters fired near his feet, as the desperate hands dragged and pulled, hauling up the steps towards the ruined Phoenix Gate. His armor caught on the corpse of his sons, each one knocked a spike of agony in his ruined neck. Blood poured from his windpipe down his lungs, making him splutter feebly. He was going to drown in his own blood. "Retreat! Retreat!" called a voice. "The day is lost." "Theo?" thought Guilliman. "Is that you?" He could hear Fulgrim's silken, demonic laughter drawing near. "How many Ultramarines have died to save me?" An instrument chimed louder than the bleating alarms of Guilliman's battle armor. "They have Locust Lock, my lord," someone else said, close enough that Guilliman felt their breath on his ear. "We'll have you safe soon." Guilliman tried to face the voice. He knew many of the sons, but this one eluded him. His mind was filling with black fog. "We're losing him," said the voice, rising in panic. "Where's the teleport? Get us out of here! Get us out of here!" Thiel, thought Guilliman. Definitely Thiel. A flash of blinding light and the bang of air displacement stole Raboot's going away from the blaze of his brother. Time hung, caught between an instant and an eternity. Guilliman ceased to be. For a moment there was peace. "Out of here!" Another roar, and the kneeling discomfort of rematerialization. Guilliman has thrust back into the veil, into the world of men, and he fell to the teleport deck with a resounding clang, jarring his wound. Fiery poison sketched out the circulatory system, thrusting the realization of his own mortality upon him. He was not going to die. In this final moment, Guilliman began to panic. He did not fear his death, but what it meant for the Imperium. Andros had been right, and now Andros had been dead. "I cannot die," he thought. "I cannot die. I will not!" He exceeded his formidable will to keep his body alive, a fruitless effort. His dispassionate nature did not desert him, not even at the very end. As he railed against his fate, he rationally noted the failure of his organs, the dark ring thickening about his eyes, and the pleasurable pain that faded into numb bliss creeping towards his heart. It was as if he was reviewing progress reports on the construction of new buildings. Faces crowded round the narrowing well of his vision. Faces were cast aside to reveal harrowed faces. "They mourn me already. I am dead. I cannot die now. Not now. There is too much to do. Too much to... What will Russ do without me? Or Khan? Too much." Ultramarine shouted for the proxies. Something tugged at his ruined breastplate. A white gauntlet flashed past his dimming eyes. The cool relief of drugs pushed back to the exquisite burn of Fulgrim's poison for a breath. But they could not stop it, and it surged back anew. His pulse showed and slowed. Colored spots swirling around his eyes. "Father," he mouthed. Poison blood frothed against his neck. "Father, who will guide them now?" "What is he saying?" cried an anguished voice. "What does he say?" "Father," thought Guilliman. "Save me." His heart quivered one last time, drawing themselves in for a further beat that would not come. The voices of his sons sounded far away. Darkness enveloped him. His heart relaxed. The flow of blood ceased. He stood upon a precipice. A roaring, terrifying sea of souls, haunted by a laughing of mad gods, turned all around red and ugly. "Father!" Guilliman shouted, his voice free from the poison of flesh. His sons could not hear him now, but he was heard. There was a cold, golden light at the end of pain. The roaring sea vanished. Sorrow engulfed the sun. Raboot Guilliman was no more. The immensity of the void is impossible to understand. The light infinities of Imperium even more so. Only death can encompass them both.